Now, hey everybody, welcome to the show. Tonight we have Bryan Bowman with us. Bryan is somebody that I've followed for a really, really long time. Hold on, let me pause that. I have it going off of my ear. Bryan is somebody I followed for a really long time. He's somebody that I found because he had done some AMS training back in the day. And then ever since then, I've just kind of paid attention to whatever he said because he's a super smart dude. And it just has always resonated and really clicked with me. We wanted to bring him on because, we talk about kind of expanding what we're doing and showing people different paths. And I think Bryan is somebody that is really good at talking about how you should think about what you're doing in the future and how you don't necessarily want to be dependent on Amazon or dependent on a platform for your business. Bryan, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself a little bit?
Yeah. So thanks for having me on, guys. Matt, appreciate it. RJ. And yeah, so I guess, my story is pretty simple, man. I've backgrounds kind of all over the place. I've done everything from having a brick and mortar business to playing professional golf, to being a consultant flying 150,000 miles a year and hating my life. And that really is what was the catalyst for me trying to figure out, all right, how do I get out of this? And then a few things that were going on in my personal life, just with family, that I had to decide. I had to make some big decisions. And that's when I transitioned and started basically working on a side hustle and trying to figure out a way, all right, how can I knew I was going to burn the candle at both ends. Doing my thing to pay the bills, and then at night, eat dinner, and 7 p.m. to 2 a.m. it was on the phone with, emailing suppliers in China, Skyping, looking at product samples, getting them shipped. And I ended up starting a private label business on Amazon using FBA, and things were going really well. I was actually able to transition out of my day job full-time into that business. And yeah, it's always whenever you solve one problem, you introduce the opportunity for new problems. And I think that's one of those things where, and we could talk about this because this is really interesting to me. We always are chasing, I talk a lot about current situation to desired situation, and this transformation that everyone's going through. And it's such an important thing for us to know as business owners and the people we serve. But as soon as you have one transformation, man, it's boom, another problem comes. And the more we can embrace that and realize the bigger our success, the bigger our problems are going to be. And we just have to get used to finding answers. But I wasn't there yet. So literally it's everything's going well. I'm sweet. I quit my day job, making good money. And just like that, boom, I remember it was Tuesday morning. I'm flipping through my phone, right? Every morning, check the seller app and see ooh, how much are we doing today? And it was really low. I'm that's weird. And there's always that thought in the back of your head, and my heart starts pumping. I'm oh, come on, because you hear the stories, Yeah. And sure enough, man, I go to the computer, desktop, I check it. It's boom, first listing shut down, second one, third one, fourth, and 80-20, right? 80% of your results come from 20% of your input of your actions. And it's no different with physical products, right? We got a few SKUs that are just crushing. And it turns out the ones that were really driving the revenue for us, were just getting shut down. And by the end of the day, our account was shut down. So it was just competitor stuff, black hat stuff where, copyright infringement that was totally bogus, but it did its damage. And that's what really set off the alarms in my head. All right, I've got to start not abandoning Amazon, because it's a good thing. And it's the 800-pound gorilla, and you monetize it. But it was all right, I need to really build my own platform. And like Dan Kennedy says, a business without a mailing list isn't a business. So that's the lifeblood of your business. And so that's really started the whole, really figuring out how do we actually scale this thing without that beautiful free flowing traffic coming every day with all this buyer intent on Amazon. So
right. Yeah. I mean, I think it's something that actually resonates with just the merch audience in general, because so many of them depend on organic traffic from Amazon for their business, right? And what they're finding is there's so much competition now in the merch side. They're having to run some advertising. They have to figure out some of this stuff. They're having to run some paid traffic to actually get visibility on their listings. And it's oh, the organic traffic isn't necessarily there. My business isn't as consistent as it used to be. Maybe I need to start thinking about how do I, transition and do something a little bit different, something that's a little bit, maybe not steady necessarily, but I have more control over.
Nice. So episode number 59 with Bryan Bowman. So how long have you been doing this? When did you start doing all this?
Yeah. So I started private labeling. It was coming on 5 years. that I started doing. I was always like flipping stuff. So back in the day, my wife and I owned a vintage furniture like resale business. So we would go to estate sales. It's still actually a really good business model, man. We would find stuff like chairs for like $50, but they were like the right chairs. I remember we would get these like Chippendale chairs. They were for some reason, it always reminds me of like Vegas.
Right.
But we would flip these things for like $1,000. It was insane. My wife has an amazing eye for like the stuff to get. So that's how it started. I was flipping like textbooks. This is like, 10 years ago, or probably like 12 years ago. And but the private label started 5 years ago. So sorry, what was your other question, RJ? I forgot.
That was it. Just how long have you been doing it and stuff like that? Like what got you into doing this? I know there's a lot of people that just don't like working for someone else, or just want to just go out and venture and like just figure out how to create something themselves. And like what was the way that you figured out how to actually, so you started flipping, right? Flipping stuff?
Yeah, that was originally, so I knew, it's really interesting because that's when I had first figured out that buyers have different biases. And it was like when I was flipping textbooks, I would go to eBay. Now it makes sense to me. Then it just made absolutely no sense how I could go to eBay, buy a textbook for $5, post it on Amazon and sell it for $50. It was like, what? And it would sell like that. And that's when I first started thinking and realizing like, oh, there's just some people that they want to buy on Amazon and they trust Amazon, or they want to buy on eBay. Like people have different biases and what they favor. So, and tapping into that, by the way, is like the big part of understanding how to sell to an audience off of a marketplace. But man, honestly, like, why did I get into it? Like, why was I waking up and working from 7 p.m. to 2 a.m., sleeping 4 hours, going back to work? I just couldn't believe like this is it. I must be honest, man. That was it. It was just like this feeling of I know I've got to do something else. Like I can't just do this for the next 40 years. Or 45 years. And then, and at that time I was listening to, it's so funny because I had read 7 Hour Workweek really quickly and I put it down. It's really interesting how many Amazon sellers were influenced by 4 Hour Workweek. It's pretty remarkable.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, I was listening to it. I got into this thing where I was listening to all the time on the way to work, and that was kind of in my ear. And yeah, who knows, other influences. I think JLD was just getting started. Entrepreneur on Fire, and it was just starting to really like kick off. And I was some of the early episodes I was listening to, and yeah, it's
going back to that professional golfing too as well. You're still golfing on the side as a hobby?
Man, it's hard, it's like, because we're all competitive, right? And then like you get this competitive nature, and to go out, like I could still post a decent score even though I don't really play, just because once you get it, you kind of know how to play. But I was pretty good, I'm not gonna just.
I know exactly what you're talking about, because like I used to play golf. Like I played golf from the time I was like 12 all the way like through college, everything else.
Yeah.
And yeah, like the idea of going out and not being able to perform like not being able to do the things I want to do when I want to do it, it drives me insane. Like it's happened a couple times, and I'm just like, if I'm not going to be playing all the time, if I'm not going to be actually going out there and practicing and doing all those things, like it's almost more frustrating to go out and play.
Yeah, and then it's just like, and then like you miss a putt or whatever. You just and then for me, like I have to play for something. So we'll play for either skins or we'll play for money, and then to lose, and it's like and to know that I don't have the time to be like where I used to be. Anyway, it just frustrates me. So
yeah. So, this is something that you bring up a lot in relation to like what you do, is the fact that you had played professional golf. Do you find that like that mentality, so that competitive nature, especially because golf, right, you're competing against yourself. Like, do you find like that's part of the keys of your success?
Man, so 100%. Okay. So that's really interesting. No one has ever asked me that, ever. I've been on a lot of different shows. No one's ever asked me that. 100%. So I'm big into grappling. Like I wrestled, and wrestling, it seems very much like a combat sport. And just like in a race, okay, so much of like winning, everyone thinks like that the people who win have this extraordinary advantage. It's not. It's just that they stay in it a little bit longer than the next guy. You could see it where like in wrestling, you're grappling, and it's like, so I wrestled, but then I trained jujitsu. Same thing with golf, man. It's like, if you can stay, it's more about inside strength and like to push yourself another step, another step, another step. And it's like what is like a war of attrition. It's just who can last the longest. And usually the difference between first and second, you know, the payout at first is way bigger, but really the difference in skill is this much. And it was just the guy who won stuck in there just a little bit longer and pushed a little bit further.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think the other through line in that too is like both golf and jiu-jitsu, right, require constant work. They require a lot of time, a lot of attention to detail, everything else. And it's not necessarily like fun. You know what I mean? It's not like a sport like football or basketball where like you're going up and down the court and all these other things are going on. It requires a lot of concentration, a lot of dedication. So like, I think there's a lot of like through lines, a lot of parallels to those things.
100%.
Yeah. Also, everyone that's joining in, go ahead and give this video a thumbs up. Also, too, consistency too is a big thing with any of that, right? I want to say, just like with anything else, being consistent and just not overwhelming yourself, right? Not overwhelming yourself, but being consistent at a level that you can kind of, how would I say, kind of just keep it going at a level that you feel comfortable with, and not comfortable. I want to say comfortable, but just growing. You know, you get what I'm saying.
So what it really comes down to, RJ, is like, and I talk about this, is the difference between speed and velocity, because you can burn yourself out.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I meant right there.
It's amazing how like, if you just have, so everyone gets really excited. Like you start a new project, right? Let's say you're going to start a new merch store and you're like, all right, sweet. Like I got all the designs, or, you know, I got everything going. I got my account, sweet. And then like, there's this initial like momentum or this initial motivation, right? And then pretty soon, like it starts dying out. The motivation to keep going starts dying out because you don't see results, or maybe you don't see the results you wanted. And that's why motivation's overrated. Everyone's trying to get motivated. They're trying to get pumped up. And I believe you should. Like, for example, for me, one of my routines is I go for a 3-mile walk every morning with my dog, and I'm listening to training, to audio stuff, to audio books. I want somebody firing me up for the day, but it's not so much because I'm like ready to attack the day. Yeah. Like quotes and all this. Yeah. It's just like, it's putting me in the frame of mind. But what will give you the momentum to like continue is one, knowing the things to work on, and then relentlessly working on those things, because that's where you'll start to see like the incremental little gain. Like you'll start to see progress, and that snowballs. So like a lot of people, they confuse speed with velocity. They confuse like busy work, like staying busy with progress. And what ends up happening is you end up going around in circles. So you're going really, really fast, but like you haven't moved. You're still right here. Whereas the person who maybe they're not going as fast, but at least they're being consistent and they're being mindful about the actions they're taking. They're moving in a direction. So like, even if you go in the wrong direction, at least when you get here, you can be like, okay, that wasn't where I wanted. So you can change directions, and you can change directions, but at least you're moving. You know, does that make sense?
No, totally. I mean, I think it's a very apt analogy, right? Like, because all of us as entrepreneurs have like shiny object syndrome, right? Like, so there's always this bright thing on the corner that like catches your eye and takes away your focus or whatever. But like when you really have growth, when you really have success, it's about just really diving in deep and focusing on that one thing and moving that thing down the field, versus trying to do 18 million different things at once, because none of it's going to get done.
Yeah. And it's like a really like tactical thing that I would say to your audience, and you guys can do it right now. I don't know if you guys talk about this, but it is never too soon for you to start building systems in your business. We do everything in Trello boards, and Trello is free. You don't need, you know, it's amazing to me that you can do everything you can in a free, you know, web app. And we build out SOPs for everything. And it's never too soon, especially for like a merch business, an FBA business. There's a lot of moving pieces. And it's never too soon to do that, because one, that's going to that'll just give you a lot of your time back. It'll clear a lot of headspace, because you don't have to remember the different steps. You just follow the checklist, right? Even if you're the only team member in your team. But one of our Trello cards is our wish list. It's like the shiny objects, right? So that way I don't feel like I've given up on it. If I'm like, oh man, like even today, oh Matt, first of all, Matt, you're going to love this. I'm going to keep it close to the chest today, but I had an amazing idea today, man. I just know it's going to crush, but I just don't have time. Like in March, I'm traveling, I'm going to Prosper Show, I'm speaking, all this. So it went on like the shiny object Trello card.
Nice. So you love to read books, right? Like we talk about this all the time. Like you go through a lot of books. probably more than just about anybody I know. In terms of like you said, the 4-Hour Workweek had a big effect on you, but like what are other like books that you feel like as an entrepreneur, especially early, right? Like that really kind of lit the fire under you and really kind of helped you develop some of the skills that you have?
Man, so early on, let's see. Yeah, definitely 4-Hour Workweek. I read a lot of business stuff at first. So Rework, it's more about software and SaaS businesses, but I think for me that inspired me because it was so simple to understand, and it made me feel like, I think for me, I thought there's like these little side businesses, and then there's like real businesses, right? And I just thought it was just so different.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh man, that's like that huge, how do you ever build a multi-million-dollar company with a valuation and funding and whatever it was like this? They seem so official. And then I had this little like side hustle, and reading Rework, I think it kind of connected the dots for me, where I was like, wow, first of all, it's not either or. It's a, you build to a certain level.
Right.
And a lot of the stuff that they were doing, and even though they intentionally are kind of a small company relative to most software companies, to me, that seems so big, and it was so practical. Like I could connect with it. So I don't know, maybe
that's Basecamp, right? Like Jason Fried,
Basecamp,
and
37
David
Signals.
and DHH.
Yeah.
Those guys are super smart. Like they have a different way of looking at things.
Yeah.
Like I found them a long time ago. They've actually really impacted me a lot too. Just in the idea that like, you don't necessarily have to follow the path that everybody else does, and being very mindful in terms of like the business that you're building, right? Like the business that they designed was by design. It wasn't luck that they have the business that they have right now, where, they're not necessarily killing themselves at work every week. Like they have a good culture, all those things.
Yeah.
All right, so
exactly.
Going back to you said you woke up and you seen like your Seller Central account, like your sales weren't up there to how they used to be, and then you went to the computer, you seen a couple listings delisted or suspended.
Shut down.
What did you do? So what happened after that? Like, what's the story after that? What did you do?
Oh, so I got an email, because I kept getting these emails that like the attorney that I could contact, and that it was like copyright infringement or something like that. We ended up going back and forth, and it turns out they were doing it to like a bunch of other listings. And then I had some friends just in the business that helped me out to get everything reinstated. So we were good. We got everything reinstated, lost ranking, but kept selling.
Right.
But that was when I just started focusing a lot of my energy on building a list.
So what's the next step, right? So like that happens to you, you get shut down, you've gone through the reinstatement process, everything else. Like where do you decide you're going to start the next step?
I mean, for me, it was automatically. So I mean, first of all, at this point, I didn't have a lot of the frameworks that I have now, right? It was like, all right, I'm seeking out mentors. I'm learning. I'm just taking all the content and figuring out, okay, where does all this stuff really, really work? And I think for me, one advantage was because I had like a strong math background, I could bringing in a way to like analyze the data, because that was huge for me. So because I started testing a whole bunch of stuff, because everyone had their own theory, right? Oh, you got to run Facebook ads, or oh, you have to build a funnel, or oh, it's a shop, it's a storefront, or you got to get big commerce, whatever it was. So for me, it was a lot of different ideas and a lot of different theories. So I just tested a whole bunch of stuff. Fortunately, at that point, I had some capital to work with. Definitely, we won't say wasted. I invested a lot of money in data,
right?
And then just figuring out like, okay, what actually works. And then that's when a lot of the frameworks that I talk about now really were born. Like we're really kind of started to come together. So if I was doing it right now, I would get really clear on how I'm going to, what we call the ecom vital few, is like, how am I going to increase 4 key things? And if you've got nothing to start with, right? It's like, all right, I'm starting from scratch. Then the first thing is you have to have an audience that is going to pay attention, an audience that can come into your sphere of influence, that you can ultimately convert into customers. Because there's 4 things you have to focus on. You have to build an audience or leads, but leads doesn't necessarily have to be emails. It just has to be an audience. I mean, video views on an ad can be the beginning of an audience, because it's someone that you can begin to sort of start engaging. So you have to start building an audience right away, like day one. One thing that I see just way underused by e-commerce sellers is having a face to the brand that just is putting content out there is just, it's amazing how powerful people connect with people. Like it's people, they form an immediate connection. And when you're bootstrapping, you don't have 50 grand to put major campaigns together. One of the best things you can do. And we think of like coaches or something doing this, but brands can do this. I have a buddy who has a pretty successful barbecue business. He's the face of the brand, man. And he gets on there and he's using the stuff and he's talking about, he's in his backyard talking about grilling hot dogs and stuff. And he's starting to build an audience, right? And they're watching his video.
That's dope. That's honestly, that's pretty inspirational right there. Like having people just like have their own product and talk about it and not be scared to speak in front of the camera. A lot of people are like, they get scared to speak in front of people. And I used to do that. I used to ditch school because I didn't want to speak in front of nobody. I'm like, oh yeah, listen today.
And the beautiful thing is no one's going to pay attention the first 40 times you do it. Yeah. No one even knows you exist. So
that's interesting. So with the leads, you said it could be anything like video views. If you guys are not, so video views is like so on Facebook, right? So so Facebook and all that stuff like that, is that what your like Facebook ads is that what you're known for and all that stuff like that? Facebook ads, is that your go-to?
I don't know. It's not my go-to. It's an easy one to start with because the platform's really easy to use. The targeting's really good. But I definitely, it's a tool, right? Like I'm a carpenter and Facebook is a hammer, right? It's just one of the tools that I have in my toolbox. There's a lot of ways to drive traffic. I think that's the other thing. So, is when you get started is realize you need two pieces, right? You need the metrics and the marketing, and marketing is way more than Facebook. Marketing it's a big subject, but there's a few things that you just have to get familiar with. And when you understand those like rules around marketing or like the principles, it applies to every platform, online, offline. And the idea of building audiences, on Facebook, of course, we can go in there, we could target, you sell watches or you sell unicorn t-shirts. Okay. Likes unicorns, and everyone knows that kind of targeting, but there's a lot of audiences that are out there online and offline.
Right.
There might be a unicorn conference that's held every year and might be 500 people that congregate down the street in your town. And that's an audience.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the beauty of it too, right? Like you don't necessarily have to go directly down one path. There isn't only one way to win. And this is like the beauty of business, right? Like you may not necessarily have to win at Facebook ads, but if you have skills at making relationships and being able to like talk to other people and partner up with them, like that's another way that you can actually get your product out in front of people. I think that's one of the things that actually really drew me to you, Bryan, is like you were creative. You weren't necessarily somebody that was like locked and pigeonholed into something. Like it was always like thinking about things from a foundational level, like having the concepts in place and then using that to kind of examine everything else that you're doing.
Yeah, first principles, man.
Yeah.
That's like, so I'm a big fan of mental models. It's probably about 50-ish or so mental models that I keep, that I have now, and I'm always trying to add new ones. And I talk about them a lot, so this is familiar to you, Matt. And I don't know how deep we want to go down mental models, but honestly, it will change everything about your life, how you see the world, how you analyze things. And you'll suddenly start becoming that person who's got like, that's interesting. Right.
Yeah.
And it's not that you're any smarter. It's just, you're just seeing it through a different lens.
Yeah, like, so you're a huge fan of Charlie Munger too. Like we both have that in common. Huge. Like literally, like seriously, if you guys want to really change the way that you look about things from a very like foundational level, like, because Charlie looks at things very deeply. And I mean, in some ways it's simple, but in other ways it's very profound. Just start reading some of his stuff. It's incredible.
It's crazy, guys. Like I know, and there's a lot of inspirational guys out there, and there's a lot of, people who are like, man, it's like if you need a handful of things. You want to learn marketing, pick up some Dan Kennedy, pick up some Jay Abraham, like old school guys. It's not the guy you're seeing the ad from, but you will learn. That's like a PhD in marketing. You want to learn how to see the world and like how to think. Like Charlie Munger, just start there. Watch some of the YouTube videos. It's not quick sound bites. It's not 20-second bits. You're gonna have to sit down and actually process it and think about it. But man, it will, and at first it's going to sound kind of like, what? This is crazy. Sure. What's he talking about? And then it starts layering on, and like this, it's hard to explain, but all of a sudden you start just seeing things differently. It's just,
I think that's super important in business, right? So a lot of times we get questions from the merch audience, bringing it back into merch. It's like, how do you guys come up with the ideas? Like, how do you guys figure out like what you want to target or how you want to combine things and actually target specific audiences and stuff? And that's part of where it comes from for me, right? It's just like looking at things through a little bit of a different lens, and then suddenly you see something unique and there's an opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah. So how does, I mean, I actually don't know the merch world well. I understand print on demand. I don't know the merch world. So how does that work? If you were getting started to pick designs and how does that process work?
So for me personally, it kind of like, it starts with like my own interest, right? Like things that I know already, like things that I have something that I identify with, or I have some knowledge about. And then it's just kind of going down the rabbit hole. So like just doing competitive research and seeing what else is out there, not just on Amazon, but going out and seeing, like just do a Google search. Like you want to find out what's going on in the camping niche, like look up camping t-shirts and see who's ranking on Google, and get off Amazon, look and see what else is out there, because there's opportunity. Like if they're ranking there, they've put work in, they've spent money to get to that spot. And then just, again, like just go down the rabbit hole, figure out, hey, like if there's a camping shirt, can we combine it with another niche like doctors, firemen, whatever, and, target down and do really micro, because there's no opportunity cost with Merch by Amazon. Like Merch by Amazon is free. You can list as much stuff as you want. So like just test everything.
Yeah. So yeah. No, go ahead, RJ.
That's another thing too. This is like going back into that. So it's mostly like print on demand, of course. But I think just thinking like the customer, like put yourself in the customer's shoes. Like for example, what Matt said, camping. Like, all right, so what do people like to do when they go camping? Like, you know what I mean? Pay attention to what they do. Pay attention to what's their interest. What interests them to actually buy that product, buy that shirt, or whatever it could be. You know what I mean? So I think that's a big thing. It's kind of like having their like buying mentality and understanding what they want and why they want it. And if you can understand why they want it, that's a very big thing. I don't know. I pay attention to stuff like that.
So check this out. Like look at how many principles you just called out. So one is you first of all you understand the value of competitive analysis, building a swipe file, understanding what's working and modeling what works. You don't want to be, people think that a lot of times in general, like we think that creativity or success comes down to this breakthrough idea. And yes, there are the people who are just 0 to 1. They're literally, they have no competition because it's a completely unique idea. This is something Peter Thiel talks about, but it is rare. I can run down a list of people who literally took something that existed, modeled it, not copied it. We have to also retain ethics here, but modeled it and were able to be successful by changing something about it, fundamentally about it, that made it different, but still the same, right? And that modeled what was working. Then we're looking at Collier principle, which is what RJ mentioned. Like we have to see what the buyer wants. Collier principle is always enter the conversation already happening in your prospect's mind. You're not trying to put thoughts into anyone's head. You're not trying to put desires into anyone's head. You're just trying to see what they already want. You're meeting them there, and then you're guiding them towards what you have. It's why during Christmas you see Santa Claus in every single window. It's because Santa's on everyone's mind. Right. So it's meeting people where they're at. It's why there's back to school sales on stuff that you don't take to school. It's why there's Memorial Day sales for mattresses. It's because that's where people's minds are at. Yeah. There was another thing you had mentioned as you're talking. I was like, that's exactly, I can't remember, but you were, Matt, you were talking about, we list it and,
it's just, I mean, for me, it's a lot of testing. Like, I mean, we talk about this all the time, right? Like we just try and drive home to people. It's like, everything's a data point, right? And especially because on merch, you don't have the same data that you do on Seller Central. You don't get any of that stuff. So like, having a successful sale is a data point. Like it's one of the only data points you have. So you have to pay attention to that stuff. This is where, like, I kind of brought this up to you before, but I feel like Merch by Amazon is actually a great launching pad for people to get into e-commerce. Like very low risk. Like it teaches you a lot of the skills that you need to have if you want to move on to something else. I just think it's a really great opportunity to just kind of wet your feet into it and learn some really important skills before you decide to go jump into something else.
100%. I love for people starting out, and I made a lot of mistakes. Like I probably. And again, I don't like to use terms like I lost or whatever. Like, listen, it's part of business. It's just what happens. But, I had probably invested, 12 grand before I really hit on something that was a product that got me some traction. You know, that's a decent amount of money for most people. Yeah. And any business model where you don't have to carry the inventory with physical products, whether it's print on demand using something like Printful or Teespring or Guten or something, right. Or if you're using merch, the bottom line is the fact that you can start generating revenue without having to hold inventory. That's now capital that you can start building for a launching pad. It could be a totally separate brand, but the beauty about apparel and any print on demand is it can also start building the audience for the thing that you're ultimately going to want to sell. You know, if you're going to sell in the fitness niche, right? You want to come out with a supplement. You could start creating and congregating an audience of people through the printed items, right? Through these things. Mm-hmm. And you can attract that audience first. And then now, guess what? Now you've got an audience built up, and maybe not on merch, but if you started building out, your own store off Amazon with the same designs, now you can start building up that list, which is going to be the launch pad for your new thing. Because that's the thing is now you have an audience, and I want to talk about this really quick. Just I kind of left the open loop like 10 minutes ago. So we got 4 pillars that you have to focus on. Like this is the only way to grow a business, guys. So seriously, this is your litmus test now. And I mean this, everything you ever compare when someone has a new idea for you, a new shiny object, the way you decide if it's a shiny object, if it deserves your attention or not, is you just always ask yourself in your e-commerce business, does it directly and dramatically impact one of these 4 things? If it's indirect, then it's probably not that important. Does it help you build an audience? Does it help you convert that audience into customers? Does it help you increase the average order value of those customers? And does it help you directly increase the frequency of purchase? If the answer is not an absolute resounding yes, then the answer is no. And that's it. And that's how you start clearing the overwhelm, clearing all the crap, clearing all the distractions. And then you relentlessly say yes to the thing that actually moves the needle. Charlie Munger's partner at Berkshire Hathaway is Warren Buffett. Guy's worth, a few dozen $1 billion. And, he says the difference between successful people and very successful people is very successful people say no to almost everything. And that's because they clear everything out of the way so they can focus on the things that actually move the needle.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's something that's only become more apparent to me the longer that I've been doing this too. It's just, there's so many things that will pull your attention away. And unless you are like disciplined about saying no and really focusing on the things that matter, it's hard to get anything done.
Yeah. Yeah. The answer is usually no.
Yeah, it really is.
This is really good. This is really good right here, guys. I'm just, I'm learning. I honestly, I'm like here. All right.
You'll be amazed. You just be amazed how like the ball starts moving. Like for so long, you're like, you're trying to push it. And I get it when you're just like, you're putting in the effort. Like, where's the payoff?
Yeah.
And it's just a little bit of shift and moving all the clutter out of the way. So you put effort on just a couple of things. Yeah. And all of a sudden, boom, the thing starts moving. And then and that's when the momentum starts picking up. And that momentum then breeds a ton of motivation. I will tell you, the most motivated people you will find are people who are successful. And a lot of times you think it's like, well, that's why they're successful because they're just so motivated, or like not motivated, but they're so like driven for more and they're curious and they're trying to grow. But a lot of that is birthed from the fact that like they are getting the success. I don't know if it's like, they help each other. They feed off each other. Like they're obviously some catalyst to get them going, but a lot of what's happening is they're just continue to get momentum from the progress they're making.
It's the confidence, right? The confidence is kind of just going through the roof, and you just keep on it's like a snowball effect, right?
Yeah. So my point is when you see someone who's like crushing it and they just seem like they're just making moves and you're just like, oh my gosh, like how does it happen? It's like just it'll happen, but just focus on the things that right now, the domino in front of you, knock that thing down and just focus on that.
It's crazy too that you say that because I cut like a lot of people off like last 4 months. And I'm just kind of the people that I'm connecting with are like kind of just like holding me to another level to like you have no choice but to grow and continue growing. You know what I mean? And like both the people, I never even known them for like I barely even met them like 2 years ago. And most of the people that I know like my whole life are just like, hey, how's it going? You come hang out with me. And now these guys are like, no, I'm not hanging out with you. I have to work on my business. You should be doing the same thing. I'm like, oh, okay.
That's right.
No, man, it's pretty cool. It's me and Matt, we met but yeah, like 2 years ago, and now we're just like holding each other down next level. We pretty much talk every single day. So yeah,
that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. Do you guys do like a stand-up meeting like once a day? Like, how do you guys do it?
So typically it's because I have my pool business, right? So I'm working during the day, and then it's RJ calling me at like 10 o'clock in the morning, and it's just like running through everything that's going on in our heads and everything else that we're working on. And just, just kind of a running conversation. I run a Slack group too, that's got like 30 people in it, that are all like e-commerce entrepreneurs. We're all kind of, the through line is we're all connected through Merch by Amazon and print on demand, but there's a lot of different businesses going on there. Both in the real world and then also online too. So it's a good group to have, man. Like you have a quote, and I don't know exactly where you got it from, but like you want to put yourself in a position where the people around you are so successful it's almost scary. Like, and that's always my goal. Like I never want to be the smartest person in the room. Like I want to be in the room where like I'm just fucking blown away because of what they're talking about or how they're thinking about things.
Yeah, so that just came out one day. I think I was doing like an Instagram story or something. I don't know. And I just said it and I was like, oh. And it's, you have to become comfortable with being you have to get comfortable with being around people who are so successful, they make you uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. And I've never been, this is one thing I would just advise anyone who's listening to this is, you can buy your way in or you can earn your way in. And there's a lot of times where buying your way in is the right decision because it'll save you time. It's amazing when I've never been afraid to like hire mentors, to spend money to get to people in my life that I knew would be able to help me move forward. Didn't matter if it was jujitsu, hiring, paying the black belt X dollars an hour to actually train me. When I played piano, I sought out like the best piano teacher on the planet. This guy who was like 5 degrees removed from Beethoven. It was insane. This guy he could make prodigies. He could just manufacture them. It was crazy. And it was no different in business. Like I'm always seeking out mentors, and that speeds up results so much faster. And seeking out mastermind groups, like good quality groups where you literally walk in the room and it's like, I hope nobody figures out I don't belong here kind of thing. Yeah. And it sucks, right? Because we seek comfort. But if, a lot of times our life is defined by how many uncomfortable moments we have. So.
Yeah, no, some of the biggest growth that I've had in this business, like the biggest steps I've taken forward is just because I was like, fuck it. Like, I'm just going to do it. Like, I'm just,
That's right.
Just literally like, just do it. And everything will sort itself out.
Yep. It does. It's amazing. It's wild how it works.
Yeah. So if you were to start building an audience right now, right? Like, where do you think that you would want to start? What's the easiest place to start? Because this is something that we're talking about a lot, at least in the merch communities, is the fact that, again, like the organic traffic isn't necessarily consistent on Amazon. It's just super competitive. It's hard to get things there. So it's like, how can you do a workaround or be creative to get eyeballs on your stuff? So whether that's building a Facebook group, building, fan pages, etc.
Yeah, that's a good idea. It's a good question. I think the right thing depends on the person and what they're comfortable doing. If I was going to choose, if I had one choice, how would I build an audience? Because there's, so many ways you can do it. There's email. You can, build up an Instagram, a Facebook page, a blog, a podcast, a YouTube channel, a messenger list. We talked about video views. And that's just online things you can do. Right. You could start a meetup or something. There's so many ways you can build an audience. If I was going to start and we kind of had to bootstrap this thing, yeah, hands down right now, because it's just so accessible and it's so powerful. The ROI, it takes time, but it's there, is video. And it's going live and just broadcasting and getting comfortable, hitting live. And you're like, a lot of times, and then the next question, I already know where it's going with, if someone's listening to this, they're like, okay, but then what do I talk about? What do I talk about? That's always the next question. And that's where this idea of mapping the transformation is huge. We have one guy, him, Jake, he's in the underground group.
Yeah.
Yep. He is, his product, like it serves, I won't talk about his product, but like it serves, it's like parents, right? So like this idea, I told him, like, go live, like just start putting content out there. And he didn't really know what to talk about. So I said, I explained this mapping the transformation idea. Like the next day he posted in the group, like 40 different things in this transformation. And now, I mean, he's got topics for days now. So that would be where I would start. I would map out the transformation, and I could talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I think we should probably clarify, map the transformation out. Like, I understand what you're talking about, but I think the rest of the audience is probably curious, like, what exactly do you mean by that?
Yeah. So no matter if you're in business, you're the business owner and there's a buyer, and the person is buying from you because they are seeking a transformation. They maybe don't know it. They think they're just buying a Bluetooth mouse. Well, they're actually possibly, this, I don't know, you're gonna have to research it, but they possibly are actually going through a transformation where they want to make their workspace cleaner, or they just want to get rid of all the freaking clutter, all the cables, whatever it is. There is a transformation. It might be a short one. It might be a long one. If it's weight loss, if you sell supplements, you've got a supplement that speeds up someone's metabolism. Well, that's just one piece of this bigger transformation. So a good exercise is I draw a C on one end and a D on another. C to D, current to desired. I do this all the time on the whiteboard. I literally, whenever I have an idea, I always do this.
Nice.
And I draw a line between them. And you figure out, where are they now? Where are they trying to get? So let's say it's weight loss. So somebody they're not in the shape that they want to be in, and they want to get back to being in great shape, or they want to just have more energy. Fine. That's the transformation. And now we just have to figure out, what are all the things that have to happen along the way? So you've got a supplement, and it's just one piece of that transformation. It's the thing that speeds up their metabolism, let's say, or controls their appetite. Fine. That's one piece. Or it reduces inflammation so that they can actually recover faster and work out. Yep. Whatever it is, it's one piece. But there's other things they need. They need meal plans. They need a better diet. They need the equipment to work out in. They need support. So much of losing weight or getting in shape is accountability and staying with it and consistency, like we were talking about. So there's all these things they need in this transformation. And there's information they need too. So all the information they need, that's your content. That's what you can be putting out. So now you're getting them results in advance. There's all this goodwill being built out. Now you're like, I just sell shirts with motivational quotes. Okay, but that's just one piece of that journey. They have all these other things. So now you could put out content about, all this other stuff, meal prepping, workouts, something you saw, something, and you just have all this content to talk about. And every once in a while, they know you, and the whole time, that's the beauty about print. The whole time you're wearing the shirt.
Right.
And then it's like, oh, dude, where'd you get that shirt? Oh, like I make these, like whatever.
Yeah. I mean, it's also, like you said, meeting the customer where they're at, right? Like you're actually going to what they're going through, talking about the things they're talking about. And that's the connection that you're going to build with that audience.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. And when you do that, it starts opening all this other stuff, because now you're like, all right, what other products could I sell? Well, okay, well, I can sell this because they need it, right?
It's kind of like fixing a problem in a way, almost, right?
That's what business is. Like you're problem solving at the end of the day.
Yep. And the beauty is every time you solve one thing, you create another problem.
Yeah.
Every time you solve one problem, you create another one.
Well, the beauty of it is too, is that when you build an audience like that, right? And like you have the ability to talk back and forth, like with a live, and you get comments, you get feedback, everything else, right? Is you get to actually get audience insights. You get to actually know like exactly what they want, because you can ask them, like, how else can I help you? What else can I give you? What else is going to make this easier for you? And it's not just like in fitness, guys. Like you have to wrap your heads around, like that's an example. Like this can be literally any niche, like any niche. Whether it's camping, whether it's fishing, whether it's whatever, teachers, right? Like they all have their own unique set of problems and issues that they need to solve.
That's exactly right. And if you don't know the answer, Google.
Right?
And you start finding the answers, and they will appreciate that you brought it to them. And that's how you start building goodwill. That's how you start building a bond. And all of a sudden you're getting them results in advance. And there's always a value exchange. You're exchanging value of like the information, and maybe there's not a financial transaction, but they're giving you time, and time is very, very, very valuable. When you consider that most people's attention span is about 9 seconds, someone sits 2 minutes with you. My goodness, someone sits for 30 minutes. That's a lot of value. And I can tell you for a fact, RJ and Matt greatly, greatly appreciate that value that value exchange that's happening even right now.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. I had a goddamn question I was going to ask and it just went straight out of my head.
If you guys have any questions too for Bryan, go ahead and drop them in the comments so we can go ahead and ask them.
If you guys want to interact more with Bryan or see more of his stuff, he has a Facebook group, Marketing for E-commerce, that he goes live in normally like once a day, right? You're generally posting there once a day.
Yeah, so I'm posting once a day. I also go live. You can find me on Facebook. The group's the best place because that's where we can really interact. I'm pretty active in that group. Obviously, I have a lot of things going on with, between the intensive and the underground, and then the marketing for e-commerce group. But I'm pretty active. I post every day. I always drop video content, sharing ideas. Sometimes it's directly related to some crazy tactic that's working on Facebook, and other times it's
if you
mental models.
Exactly. If you'd like to get really in depth with Bryan, if you really want to get to him, he does have a private group, Ecom Underground, that like I've been in there for the last 6 months, man. Like it's really opens your eyes to a lot of possibility.
Cool. Also I'll put all that information down below. I'm not sure if I'm in that group. I'll put the Facebook group down below, and then if you guys want to join, just go ahead and join. It'll be in the description.
Yeah.
But let's see.
Some good stuff, getting all kinds of good feedback in here. It's pretty interesting that you say, because I've been paying attention to a lot of this stuff too. People going live all the time. Like they don't even if they think they don't even think about it. Well, if they think about it, they're just like live, and then they just start talking. And I was like, okay, what are you talking about? But then they kind of like, you can kind of tell like when they go live, they remember what they're gonna say, and then they start speaking, and all of a sudden it's like an hour long.
Here's a couple keys. Like, so if we're going to get, you break things down into principle, strategy, and tactics. And everyone wants to focus on the tactics right away because they think, oh, that's the thing that's going to move the needle. Like the button to click, or the color to put in the Facebook ad, or the like special like placement that's going to work. That's the tactical stuff. And it's super important. But you got to get the principle right. Why the heck am I doing this? Who do I serve? What's the result they want? If you don't get the principle right, the strategies and the tactics will never work. And this is why people try Facebook and it doesn't work, or they try Instagram, it doesn't work, or whatever it is. I tried it, it didn't work. Well, chances are the principle was never established. You got to figure out, why are you in business? Who do you serve? What's the transformation? And how are you there to actually help them get there? Okay. Once you do that, now we start thinking about the strategies. Strategies is, for example, where are we going to target? Listen, if you're selling to, just as an example, if you're selling to, 29 to 35-year-old women who, are recently engaged and are into home decor. Yeah, Facebook's good. Instagram is better. You should be on Pinterest. Like and no one talks about Pinterest, right? It's not as popular of a thing, but you need to be establishing, you got to figure out Pinterest because that's where your audience is. So strategically, what are we going to do? That's a huge consideration. Strategically, what options are we going to give them? If you're selling to an older demographic, you will be amazed at how your conversion rates will go up when you just have a phone number or a chat somewhere. Because for a lot of them, phone number is huge. If they can just have someone to call, and you will like double conversion rates.
Right.
So anyway, so strategically, who are we serving and how are we going to do it best? Now let's talk like tactically. So tactically, Facebook Lives, right? The best thing you can do, because you're going to be super nervous, because there's a blue button and you're going to hit that thing and it's like, hey, what's going on? Hey, okay. And then you're just not going to know what to say. So you have to keep the big topic that you're going to talk about has to be on your mind. So for me, I go live at least twice a day because I go live on my Facebook page, my main page. I go live in another group, and sometimes I go live 3 times a day. It's a lot of content. And I don't know what I'm going to talk about till like that day. I'll be out walking or something. And I just figure out, what am I going to talk about? So maybe tomorrow I'm going to talk about, how to increase conversion rates. Okay, cool. And then I'm going to just make sure I boil it down to, I don't want to ramble on for like hours about all these different things. So I'm going to pick what are like the top 2 or 3 things that I can talk about. And I just know like, that's my North Star. That's the thing I always have to go back to. So I just remind myself when I hit the button, I'm like, hey, what's going on, guys? Bryan Bowman here. And oh man, I'm excited. I got something really cool to talk to you about today. I was on a walk this morning. I thought like, what could I talk about that will just absolutely blow your mind? So I'm going to share with you like my 3 top conversion strategies for anything. It's a Shopify store, a funnel. It doesn't matter. These 3 things, they're universal. So first thing I want to talk about, and then boom, you can go into it. And then what happens is you'll go off on some tangent. And that's where usually you see people get like lost, like they don't know where to go, but it's like you have your North Star, which is the thing that you're going to cover.
Yep.
Then you can always be literally in the middle. You can say like, anyway, I don't know how I got there, but let's talk about the second thing. Because now, boom, you can go back to it. Because it's like it's what recalibrates you. And if you've got that, I promise you that alone. Oh, and if you just know what you're going to say in the first 10 seconds. So if you notice, I have the same intro almost every time, because now I don't have to think about it and I can just dive right into it. The hardest part of any presentation is the first 10 seconds. Because if you get that part wrong, all of a sudden that voice in your head is like, what did I say? Why am I saying this? What am I talking about? Oh man, why is no one here? Wait, no one's, oh, why did that person leave? Like it's weird. It's like you're out of sync or something.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's
sure.
That's like the best advice I can give.
No, that was really good. So John's asking in the chat, can you explain what the Ecom Underground is? And how does one get involved?
Yeah, so it's actually Matt's such an OG. We actually Ecom Underground is our company. So we went through this whole transition. So it's actually called the Underground. So we have the Underground and we have another program called Ecom Intensive. But the Underground it's just a monthly group. It's a monthly membership where I share strategies, tactics, principles. I pick one from each of those. It's very e-commerce centric, very centered on that. So all the topics have to do with, e-commerce and selling and improving your business. The easiest way to get involved is actually, if you go to our site, ecomunderground.com, and you go there, you'll get all the information on the podcast. And you can also, we have a case study there you can watch. And that's the easiest way to get involved in the Underground. Or the other thing you could do is if you join the Marketing for E-commerce group, you could just say, hey, Bryan, let me in the Underground and we'll hook you up.
I have that below in the description, guys. Use ecomunderground.com right down below if you guys are interested in anything down there. So
hey, you can check it out, and would love to have you in the Marketing for E-commerce group too. A lot of good conversation there. So I try to just put as much out there to help, and hopefully you guys can apply some of the stuff. And the main thing is I just like to hear back from everyone. I'm like, that's like what motivates me the most.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's one of those things where like just having the direct feedback from your audience, it's huge.
It's the same for us too as well. We see that and we're just like, wow, man, like we don't even realize and how much we appreciate. Like we appreciate, like we get over 60 or 70 comments on a post, and we're like, wow, like you know how much we appreciate that. That means a lot. To us.
It does.
But yeah, so going like recapping everything. Right now, on like say you're running Facebook advertisement or anything like that, the big thing is videos, right?
Videos. That's okay. And without nerding out, because we could nerd out. It's the best bang for your buck right now.
Okay, running videos on Facebook, any type of advertisement videos.
Yeah, and what you do is at first, guys, you just want to start just get comfortable putting the content out there. Don't start advertising yet. You're in such a good position right now, especially if you're doing merch or if you're doing Amazon FBA, just start putting the content out. Map the transformation, start putting the content out. No one's going to see it at first, honestly. That's the thing. So just start doing it. And then once you start to get the feel for it, you can actually just start putting a little money behind it, just a little bit of money. And then what you're looking for is you're trying to find one, you start sending it to your target audience. You're just trying to find one that gets a little bit of traction. It just seems like it's getting a little more engagement. It's getting a little more comments. That might be a signal in the noise. That might be a sign that, hey, maybe that's the one that we need to double down a little bit on. And people are watching that, and they're starting to engage with your content. And that's kind of the beginning of like a snowball effect.
Yeah, no, I think a lot of people get overwhelmed when it comes to any type of social media marketing. I see where they get like overwhelmed because they go into the back office or any type of like the social media platform in the back office, and they get overwhelmed. They're like, wow, what am I supposed to do here? And it's understandable. No, it's completely understandable because it gets crazy back there if you don't know what you're doing. So
just you don't even need to do that. You just go live for now. Just get started. And then if they want to know the next step, you could always find the answer. And no white space on the calendar. You schedule that stuff in.
That is the truth. Literally, like So I went through, and just because we joined the intensive, and like it's intense, right? Like it's a program. So I went out and I went back to my roots. I bought like a Franklin Covey freaking planner and bought all the stuff and everything else, because I'm like scheduling out my day hour by hour, minute by minute, because there's things I need to get done. If I don't do that, like it's just not going to get done.
100%, 100%. And honestly, oh man, so I could talk about this stuff for days. Is like optimization. So you got to start getting your time back. People, we have this culture of like, we will trade $5. To save $5, we'll like give up 2 hours. You have to start looking for opportunities to start getting your time back. So this might be a little controversial, but like literally I don't do my grocery. All my groceries get delivered to my house now.
That is not controversial at all. I will tell you right now, I know 2 people that are in the chat right now that literally like Instacart is literally their life. It's just,
it's this little I mean, you pay like 5% or something. I mean, it's nothing. It's nothing. And the groceries get delivered to your house. I literally, for, I don't know, whatever. I don't even know what it is. Maybe $100 a month. I've bought back like 8 or 9 hours of my life. Guys, like, so you have to look for these opportunities. I have a really cool exercise that I go through every quarter, but just track your time and start getting your time back and look for opportunities to buy your time back, because every hour you get back, that's an hour you can double down on your business. And the return is way higher than the $5 to.
No, that actually speaks really powerful to me and RJ, right? Because that's something that we talk about all the time with our audience, right? Because there's very low invested costs into merch. And so people sometimes get trapped in this idea that like, I don't want to spend money on my business. I'm just going to do everything myself. And like, you can't grow by yourself. You just can't. There's only so much work that you can get done during a day. So that's where like adding a VA to your team so you can help them with designing or help you with like all of those things matter.
Yeah. I think everyone should just have a VA on staff. Like even
that's literally what I have right now. Like,
if you have a good one,
yeah.
And you're like, oh, but I'm not giving him any work. Nature abhors a vacuum. Like you will find something for them to do. You should just have one on staff.
I mean, because like my VA originally started with us on merch, like, and that's what she helped us with all that stuff. Now she's an administrative assistant for us now. Like anytime I have something that comes up, like it's like, take care of this for me, do this for me. Like it's a lifesaver.
Yeah. No, I agree. Like, honestly, like when I get stuck in traffic, I get pissed off because I'm just like, man, see, this is why I didn't want to go. I could have been at the computer learning something new. Now I'm stuck in this damn traffic, wasting 30 minutes of my life. And they're like looking at me like, dude, this dude's crazy. Like, hell yeah, I'm crazy. Like, I want to win. Yeah.
You know what? You know what you got to do, RJ? That's where you pop on a little marketing for e-commerce.
Hey, I got my Back to the Future shirt on today. Dude, I used to watch this shirt like over and over. Number 2, I watched over and over, like number 1 and 2. But when I was 4 years old, that was my movie, my go-to movie. Watch it 2 or 3 times a day. And I finally bought the shirt, and I'm so excited. Like I got it yesterday.
So you just mapped out the transformation for yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
This is like Back to the Future is like real, like I don't know, man. Like everything that's on there is like so dope. I don't know.
Are you still betting on what was the Cubs? Like actually, it was pretty crazy. Wasn't it pretty close?
Yeah,
the Cubs won the World Series. Wasn't it?
They won in, was it 16?
16.
And I think it was 15 was
15. That's pretty crazy, man.
Yeah.
No, all right. No, if you guys got any last minute questions for him, for Bryan, go ahead and get them in. Because it's almost over.
This was great, Bryan. Thank you. I appreciate coming on.
Yeah.
If any of you guys are going to be out in Vegas next week for Prosper, Bryan is going to be speaking at Prosper also.
Yeah, and
so much more that we have to talk about in this show. And, being serious, like we skipped over. There's some gray areas in this show. I'm just like skipped over it because there's so much that we can elaborate on. It's like it's not like 30 or 10-minute talk. It's like literally like a 45, 30-minute talk going over.
Yeah. Hey, if there's anything, if there's anything that we talked about, if the audience, if there's something that you would like to go deeper on, if these guys want to have me back on, I'm happy to elaborate and, answer any questions you guys have after this. It'd be great.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and Brian's podcast too. It's just a great, it's not super long. It's every week, every day. It's like like literally. I mean, no, but I mean, I appreciate that though, right? Like it's something that you can turn on like when you're like in the car and you're on the way to something or whatever, and like get in a lot of like foundational principle stuff. That's what you talk about on that podcast more than anything else.
Yeah, I try to keep it to the point. I know that we're all busy, so I respect the time. And yeah, so if you guys are at Prosper, by the way, just please come up, say hi, like wherever. It doesn't matter. Just come up, say hi, and I would love to meet you and just get to know you a little bit. So yeah,
cool. We couldn't even post this in the group because Facebook's been down. I'm sure you're aware of that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been down for what, like since 9:30 this morning, I believe it was. So we can't post it really. So people are showing up right now all late in the comments like, just barely missed it. I missed it or whatever. So,
I'll catch it again. It's good. But yeah, no, this is really good. Like I said, I don't know. I just like having conversations like this. I like talking about the things that like, that really interest me. And I also like kind of exposing people to new concepts.
Yeah. Cool, man. I really appreciate it. Yeah, hopefully it was valuable for everyone. And again, just the main thing that there's a couple things I just always want to like remind, I don't know, anyone, anytime I have a chance to speak to like an amazing community, is because you guys already have you guys have amazing like mentorship and you have guidance. Now it's just about consistency and, nothing happens until something moves. So you must take action consistently and get okay with uncertainty. I think that we all desire certainty so much. And it's like a superpower. It really is. When you get to a point in your life where you're okay being uncertain, you're okay. Remember Indiana Jones, The Last Crusade? Do you remember that? Remember when the last thing he had to do was the leap of faith, right? He had to walk,
Yeah.
So be like that. Be okay with uncertainty. Trust the process. Know that, everyone's trying to figure this stuff out. And it's amazing when you operate with intention and you operate with urgency and you just take action. Like just doors open up and opportunities open up, but it's just getting comfortable with that uncertainty and then just operate with urgency and doors will start opening up. So
yeah, it's just literally like take that one step, guys. Like it just more than anything else. Like if you just take that one step and just keep going, like amazing things happen. It's when you stop and you get, delayed by something or distracted by something that you don't really move. It's like just consistency.
It's like honestly, like you feel like you're having like an awkward conversation, but it's like a real good conversation because like you remind yourself like later on, you're like, shit, now it's starting to make sense. Like it's like now it makes sense. At first it didn't. It was kind of weird, but now it's good. Like it makes sense now. So yeah, man. I don't know. Yeah. So I think that's gonna do it right there, right?
Yeah. No, I think this is great. Thank you so much, Brian. Appreciate you coming on.
Yep.
Appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Have a good night.
See you guys.